Welcome to the Great Work of Your Life interview series produced by Revealing Genius. Our guest today is an award-winning psychiatrist and founder of the Mastermind Institute. Since 2017, he has served as the section chief of psychiatry at the Community Hospital of San Bernardino. His bachelor's degree is from Atlantic Union College. He earned his medical doctorate from the University of Connecticut School of Medicine, and he completed his psychiatry residency at Loma Linda University School of Medicine. He went on to complete an addiction psychiatry fellowship at UCLA and achieved double board certification in adolescent and adult psychiatry, as well as addiction psychiatry. He was born in the Republic of Panama and grew up in the famous Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, New York. And what we're going to talk about today is his quest to help people overcome burnout. Please welcome Dr. Ricardo White.
Thank you so much for having me, Mary.
I am thrilled to have you on our interview series because we're addressing a topic that's very serious now, burnout, and you're addressing it head on. So why don't we start with the first question? It's actually a double question, and that is, what gives you energy about your work around burnout, and what drains your energy?
What gives me energy? When I think about how powerful the mind is, and when I see the light bulbs go on when I'm doing an intervention, and it's almost like you're able to watch a person's life change right in front of your eyes, and you awaken to the amazing potential that is there in terms of this work that we do. I think that's amazing. It's almost like your brain and or your mind is a portal that can transport you into being a completely different person. Especially when that's for the better. That's what gives me amazing energy. Helping people make that transformation.
Makes total sense. And how about, the best days and the worst days as you're doing the great work of your life? What do you love the most about your work? And what do you like the least?
It's interesting because what I like the least is often the peripheral things that interfere with you getting to that patient. So whether it's sometimes it's silly things like, managed care and them saying, well, you can do this, or you can't do this. And so of course that's annoying. I think when patients themselves don't value the care, that's when it can of course be draining, because you're energized and you're motivated and you're inspired and you've endured so much to get to that point to help them. And when you don't see that they're at all motivated, they all care about it, I would say that to me is pretty draining.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and you do some heavy work. You have completed a fellowship in addiction psychiatry. You have a double board certification in adolescent and adult psychiatry, and addiction. And your most recent passion project is burnout. So when did you realize that you knew what the great work of your life would be? Was there a moment in time?
Great question. I want to clarify. So when I say double board certification, which I achieved, I believe it was in 2016, it was in adolescent and adult psychiatry. And the second one is in addiction psychiatry.
Yes.
And so I'm currently now board certified in adult and adolescent, and I'm due to get recertified in addiction psychiatry. Gotta do that again. But anyway, when did I realize it? The neighborhood that I grew up in, and even in terms of early life, um, because the relationship between my mom and dad did not work out, and I saw the pain that that can result when a critical figure like your father figure is not in your life. That placed in me a desire to want to help people not experience that. So that's what attuned me to developing an interest in psychiatry. Growing up with my mom, I fell into the role of listening to her. And I learned to develop the skill of being able to listen and not necessarily feel like I needed to speak. And really just give that person a safe space to share what they have to share and give them the experience of being meaningfully heard. Well, she kind of started me on that. And so that was a contributor. And the second contributor was I grew up in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, during the 1980s, where I saw right in front of me people be taken from functional contributors of society to, thanks to the drug crack cocaine, be homeless and absolutely removed from any level of functionality or definitely removed from their dreams. And that planted a seed in me to want to learn how to be of some support to people with addictions. So it's my past that has contributed to my present.
So it started early. Did you ever have doubts or freak out moments about the great work of your life?
The real question is, did I ever have certainty?
Touche.
um, well, I'm in a single parent home. Um, I'm a, minority growing up in the ghettos. No, it wasn't an easy dream to say that one day I'm going to become a physician. It was actually very challenging. So these dreams start as a whisper. It's something you can't really get your hands around. You can barely get your thoughts around. And sometimes in your community, there are not a lot of sources that validate that, no, this is a possibility for you. But so it's just a whisper. One thing I noticed was, hey, I wonder if my ticket out of the ghettos is going to be academics. Maybe that's going to be it for me. So I kind of stumbled onto that early on, and so that led me to start working towards that. Um, but then the next thing that happened was I had a guidance counselor by the name of Dr. Delilah Henry, who she took an interest in me and said, "Hey, you should apply for this program at the University of Connecticut." And it was a summer program that introduced us to the health sciences. And each year after doing that summer program, I did subsequent summer programs, some of which there would be panel of minority Black physicians, so that now you could see your dream. You could see people who looked like you that had achieved that dream, and of course now that planted in you. However difficult the road, I've now seen some people who look like me, who even have stories that might be similar to mine, that have done this, which means it's doable. And that can play a critical role in helping you persevere through the difficult moments. Um, so, so yeah, I've had moments of certainty, but it's probably a lot more uncertainty than certainty.
Makes sense. And Dr. White, we talked about this in the intro leading up to this program today. They're on your LinkedIn profile. I love, love, love the background on your LinkedIn profile, and I'll describe it. And folks can go out to Dr. Ricardo White, White, and see it on LinkedIn. There's a picture of a cat. The cat is looking at itself in the mirror, and it sees a ferocious tiger. And can you tell
Lion.
us a little bit about it? It's a really powerful image that sort of speaks of mindset. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Well, it's seeing a lion. It's seeing a
It's
lion.
sea
So it's
lion.
looking.
Okay, gotcha.
And, I'm thinking of the Dave Chappelle quote where he goes, his mother told him, sometimes in life, you have to be the lion you don't want to be so that you can be the lamb you want to be. But that image is really important to me because visualization is so critical. Mindset is just so critical so that what you're seeing when you're looking around, it's one thing to have sight. It's one thing for your eyes to be working, but it's another for your mind to be working. What do I mean by the mind? If your body and your brain comprise what I would call the bulb, okay? So your body and your brain would be analogous to a bulb. When that bulb lights up, that's the mind. That's the gift of the mind. And you have the power to see beyond what is. You have the power with your mind to see what could be. That's when our mind's really lighting up. That's when it's really seeing it. And so that image is just a reminder to see your greatness. See your greatness when you're looking in that mirror. Remind yourself to look past what is currently and see your future. See you in your power. And I'll tell you that's important because we what we see pulls us. If we're envisioning that, it pulls us. And that's why it's so important to surround yourself with where you want to get to, because it will pull you much the same way. If you surround yourself with where you don't want to get to, it can sometimes suppress and pull you down. So that image is very important because at the Mastermind Institute, mind, the mind is a critical part of what it is that we target. And it's at its best when it's not just seeing what is, but it's seeing and being convinced of what could be.
And I would guess that just about everyone who is listening to this interview right now have has really thought about mindset, the power of not mindset, and how to leverage mindset, how to get into the right mindset. Speaking of this next question, I know you will probably mention your lovely wife Florence and your beautiful daughter by the name of Alexi Genevieve. So the question we have for you is, how do you, Dr. Ricardo White, define success?
My compliments on you pronouncing Alexi's name accurately because most people add an S, but you nailed it, Alexi. Um, success. Success, of course, is multidimensional. In at the Mastermind Institute, we talk about seven vitals. Seven vitals. So then success really and truly is achieving success in those seven vital areas of your life. And I, I'm in my image right now, the image I'm seeing is brightness, but when you're hitting all of those vitals, that's when a life really, really shines brightly. So of course you're asking, well, what are the seven vitals? Um, so first is spirituality and, figuring out what success means for you in terms of spirituality, but, feeling centered, feeling that you are on the path that is meaningful and that you're convinced is leading to where ultimately you're trying to get to. With relationships, to me, success is about achieving a level of vulnerability and truth, um, a truthfulness with who you are, and a truthfulness with relating to the people that are important to you. I think it's a powerful thing to be able to be truthful. And I think it's painful and exhausting to have to betray the truth and to have relationships that are based on falsehood. That would be a real problem, for me. So I think having meaningful relationships that are based on truth is successful. I think so. Resources is also a vital. Um, Resources are meaningful. They're, I, I really struggle with people who minimize the joy of riding in a Mercedes-Benz. It's a pleasant ride. If you step on the accelerator, it's it's a beautiful thing to have a product whose creators have invested meaningful effort to optimize your positive experience. How can that be a bad thing? That's a wonderful thing.
Agreed.
But putting energy into amassing the resources that give you a level of independence and empower you with the ability to address the needs that you feel are important, that's a measure of success. Time, having the freedom to exploit time as you see fit, and invest time into the things that you see are important. That's a measure of success. Then you have health. Health is another vital. So having your body be vital, having it, the way that so that you're free to go and come and live a full life. That's success. Mental success. Um, Having the tools to be able to protect yourself and navigate this life in a productive fashion. That's good mental health and having the strength to get the support that you need. Number 6 is a big one. A 6 vital is purpose. Having a sense that your life is meaningful, that you are contributing meaningfully in this society, that you have a talent that you've disciplined into skill, and that you are leveraging into an impact, a meaningful impact. That's success. And then last but not least, the success of rest and recreation. So being able to identify the activities that you can engage in that recreate you, giving yourself time to review your life and celebrating those things that are positive and making interventions and space for those things you can improve. That's a measure of success. So from a 7 vital standpoint, success is multifactorial, and being cognizant of it encourages you to invest time and resources such that you have really and truly rich multidimensional success.
Well, I feel like I just walked through a master class. Thank you for those. Brilliant. Really appreciate it. If you had to do it all over again, is there anything that you would do differently? What would that look like and why?
Well, here's an interesting thing, Mary. First of all, I would I would really struggle to design any future in which I would not have the psychological mindedness that my training has equipped me with, because I just find it as something priceless. Uh, as I think about navigating difficult relationships, as I think about struggles in my marriage, or having really difficult interactions with my daughter, I can't tell you how helpful it was to to have some of the tools that I've been trained with. And this is not to therapize my loved ones, but really at times, you want to hear like a practical example, for example. So take, for example, not saying the first thing that comes to mind. Like, that's an important thing to learn. Don't say the first for me, or the second, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth. You know, being able to actually think through your response and realize you can't just blurt it out. Or understanding how to be what my daughter needed me to be. That's meaningful to me. So I love being psychologically minded, but I do have a passion for law. And it's the one career, there's a nobility to the law that I love. I don't know if you've ever watched the news, and sometimes you see people that have allegedly done some very horrible things. And however horrible that thing, you see that they have an advocate seated next to them. And yeah, you want justice, but it's noble to be in a society where a person, even at their worst, is going to have an advocate. So that now when they're convicted, you have a measure of comfort that they at least got a fair trial. Obviously, I put that in quotes because, the limits of the criminal justice system. But I think that's noble that we try to have a system where even at your worst, there's at least one person in your corner. So the law is something that I definitely admire from a distance.
I can see that. And I can see that in your work too, where there's certainly elements of that where you certainly see some folks at their worst and you're their advocate. And you might be their only advocate on that day. So I can see how that resonates with you very deeply.
No question, because in my situation, people often they've gotten to a space where all they can see is their darkness. And it is a deep honor to get into that pain with them, live that pain, understand and explore it, but then at the same time guide them to the light that's also in them. And remind them that no, there is a light in you that exists as well. And let's not forget that part.
Well, I'm dying to hear the answer to this next question. It's the superpower question. And the question is, where have you spent 10,000 hours honing your superpower?
That would be in interacting with people. So I recently picked up this guilty pleasure, if you will. So I binged on the series Mind Hunter. Um, and I'm always intrigued by things that are germane today that at their inception, they seemed like such a radical idea. So, for example, the FBI at one point, they didn't really have very much in terms of knowing how to deal with murders when the motive wasn't clear or there wasn't clarity in terms of the traditional schema for what might have been a motive. And here you have this agent that says, well, shouldn't we talk to these people that are doing these murders that we don't have a clear rationale for? And to think that that intervention would have been something radical as opposed to, no, that sounds pretty logical. Well, so for me, learning how to communicate with the patient, learning how to communicate when it's hard to do so. So as a psychiatrist, can you imagine um, working with a person who's convinced that everyone's out to get them, and you, upon meeting them within 5 to 10 minutes, have to get them convinced that this medication might possibly help them and reduce their agony. Um, so my 10,000 hours have been in that context in terms of communicating and learning how to communicate effectively when there's quite a bit working against you, whether it's delusions or hallucinations or depression or anxiety. And yet you still have to be able to pierce that darkness. Um, and then vice versa. Also having the skill to give a person the experience of being heard deeply. Like, oh, this person really gets me. I would say that's how my 10,000 hours have been invested.
And you started very young with your mother. That makes perfect sense. Is there anything you wish you were better at?
Hmm. Skill acquisition, Mary. Skill acquisition. I see people who have just a remarkable ability to 1 minute be a complete novice and the next minute to develop mastery over something that they were a novice at just a second ago. I wish I could do that better, faster. That would be something I'd love to be better at.
Yeah, makes sense. Got it. These next two questions I really like. The first one is we take a page from Oprah's magazine. She used to write on the last page of her magazine every time she published about what she knew to be absolutely true. So we're mirroring that question back to you. What do you know about yourself to be absolutely true?
God is love. God is love. Um, that's what I know to be absolutely true. I find it interesting that we live in this universe that anything you choose to focus on and study, it will take you into a space of the unknown, no matter what you study. I remember coming back on a flight and sitting next to somebody who had their PhD in dirt, Mary. And they very quickly also clarified that it's not just dirt, it's a very specific form of dirt. Because even with dirt, it's just so expansive. And it just highlights just about anything you try to do, you get into what I call the God realm. You get into this realm where when you start pushing further, it becomes almost mystical. And so it's in the Psalms and it's in the scriptural Psalms where like the Psalms make this promise, you can't escape God. You can't escape it. Like any discipline that you take seriously with rigor, it's like you get into this God realm. And it's comforting to know that God is love.
Beautiful. Well said. This next question sort of goes in parallel with that question there, and it is, what would people be surprised to know about you?
What would people be surprised? I have a secret aspiration to become a comedian.
You mentioned at the top of the hour before we jumped on to record that Chris Rock was from your hometown in Brooklyn. Yes. So tell us more about that. You want to be a stand-up comedian?
Oh, I just have so much respect for that craft. It's just such of an amazing craft. Um, very, very fascinating people. When you see a performance, more and more you realize performers are really magicians because it looks like you'd see a good comedian. They look like they're just having a random conversation. And then when whether it's Seinfeld or Chris Rock or Dave Chappelle, like when you hear their process, you're just like, oh, that's astounding. Particularly Seinfeld, the rigorous commitment to consistent writing. Like you telling me that that's the thing you think of when you see him up there. It looks like it's this normal conversation where these ideas are just floating into his head at the moment that he needs them, as opposed to no, actually, that's rigorous writing. It's rigorous practice. Some of the times it worked and it didn't work, and it's a refinement process. And it's just it's a beautiful discipline. So it'd be fun to develop some
Well, you
proficiency.
gave me a million guesses. I don't think I would have guessed that. Thank you for sharing that. I have two more questions, and then we're going to pause, and then we're going to go into a final bonus question. So these next two questions, we're looking for your advice. And the first one is, what's a book that inspired you to behave or think differently?
Obviously, besides scripture, because that one kind of goes without, question. I love scripture, obviously. The other book would be Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich. That book awakens you to the idea that a thought is a real thing, much like my cell phone or like a thought is a real thing. That's how seriously you have to think your thoughts. But just this, and think about me growing up in the ghettos. But just the idea that you can think your way out of difficult situations. Your thoughts allow you to create solutions to your problems. That just is earth shattering to me. That's just amazing. Thoughts are free, they're ubiquitous, they're infinite. Now, of course, you have to marry it with a work ethic and tenacity and persistence and diligence and focus, all that. But at its inception, thoughts are real things. That concept in that book to me is just earth shattering.
That's a great reminder. I went almost 100% digital recently. However, there were a couple of books that I just couldn't part with because I had yellow highlighted them and put little sticky notes, and that is one of them. I actually have it on my shelf. It's a keeper for sure.
Well, I think the funny thing about successful people is not, did you read Think and Grow Rich? It's when did you? When did you?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
just so germane across. It's not, did you read the book? It's, hey, when did you read this book?
Right. Yes. And then how did it impact your next steps? Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Love it. So this last question before we pause and go into the bonus question is, what's your favorite quote or motto and why?
My favorite quote and motto is master your mind, master your life. Master your mind, master your life. Uh, Everything you want, just about everything you want, the beginning is you developing the belief that you can have it. You getting past your blocks, you getting past your undermining ideas that are disrupting your progress. In fact, Mary, if you want to see what you're thinking, what you're believing, then just look at your life. Just review your life. So that then it begs the question, it encourages you, then I better really embrace beliefs that are going to result with an environment that I actually want to be in. So let me master my mind so that I can master my life. I just love the power of that word, mastery. That's my quote.
Brilliant. And it's such a great reminder. And it's accessible to everyone. Like anyone can access. It doesn't matter if you were born into privilege or not. It doesn't matter where you came from. It doesn't matter what continent you're living on. It doesn't matter how old or young. There's no guardrails. Anyone can master the mind, as you say. Yes?
Well, can, absolutely. And yet at the same time, you and I both know when people have been crushed consistently, it's devastating to see. Sometimes, for example, you'll look at a person and they're gorgeous and they have no idea. They have no idea. At their core, like sometimes like you'd be shocked to know the insecurity that lives within them because someone, and sometimes it's society, took the time to devastate that person. So the mind is capable, it's malleable, and this mastery that we're talking about, it's available. But if we're crushing our young people, if we leave this environment one in which people are just devastated, then we can't be surprised when they behave as if they'd been devastated. And so this mantra would hopefully also invigorate us to promote a society that's healthy for dreaming. I think when little kids come out, they're excited about dreaming. And sadly, sometimes society is very quick to devastate those dreams. You can't do that. You can't do that. No, you can't do that. And before you know it, they start conforming. So yes, we absolutely can, but let's make it safe to dream. Let's make it safe for us to master our minds so we can master our lives.
Well said, definitely. Before we go into the last question, Dr. White, is there anything else you would like to add?
Why do you do what you do? I think you asked me great questions, but I gotta sneak one question in there. Why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? I'll take a page from your playbook, Dr. White. It, the question for me is why wouldn't I do what I do? I can't not do it. I can't help myself. I've been doing this since I was a kid and didn't even know it. And it's really around it centers around one of your vitals, which is being on purpose. I have figured that out. My purpose is revealing genius. I named my company after it. And my why is so very compelling. I am on a mission to connect people to what lights them up so that they have the clarity and confidence to share their brand genius. Think about what the world would look like if that was done at scale, if folks would step into their greatness. And this is why I'm so fascinated by your work and your mindset work, because a lot of it has to do with the mind. And one of my hows in terms of raising the floor is I really feel duty bound to remind people of their greatness. We're so good at looking at the areas where we have gaps. Why not flip that discourse? Why not flip that conversation and have a hard look at the areas where we really excel? That's our gift. And if I can help folks to figure out what it is at what they are the best in the world, a lot of folks don't have tools to do that. And then help them to articulate how they transform people when you're in that zone of your genius, you're going to have impact. And you're in your zone of genius. I noticed it the first time we met. And that's when I said, I must have you on this interview series, because I knew that your mindset reminders would help the listeners on this call. So I am as effusive today as I was 30 years ago about this work. I feel like I am blessed beyond measure. I get to do this. This is fulfillment for me.
My goodness, it's so fun to be around people who are on purpose. That's just so exhilarating because you, to your credit, you didn't, I don't want to say you didn't have to say it, but everyone believes you. Like before you said that, it exudes your being, which is how you want to be. Um, for me, it's like I needed you to set me up to answer the question. For me, the Mastermind Institute, our mission is to help people develop not just a plan, their personal master plan. That's what we're here to do. We don't just want you to have a plan. And some people don't even have a plan. If you ask them, where are you going? Why are you going there? What's happening with your seven vitals? I think that the conversation goes kind of, quiet. We don't even just want you to have a plan. We want you to have a master plan. and we want to help you do that and execute it. We feel like if that was done on a scale, our world would look different. And we should want that. Right now, there are people in slums that have the cure to cancer. There are people in Appalachia, or the ghettos of, um, I don't know, or the ghettos of Chicago or LA that have answers to very difficult problems, but they're not viewed that way. And therefore, those gifts are not nurtured. They don't have a master plan. And we are very passionate about helping people develop and live their master plan. Ultimately, we want that when you look back on your life, when you're facing your deathbed, you have a smile on your face because you suck the marrow out of life. You got that and then some, but you're leaving fulfilled and not with the regret that you missed leaving something meaningful on this planet. Um, I'm excited about helping people develop their master plan.
Yes, and the reason I was so drawn to your work is I look for folks to be interviewed on this show that are serious about impact, and not just impact in our world, but seventh generation impact. And the work that you do has seventh generation impact. If you can help folks, like you said, to master their mind, master their seven vitals, to create that master plan, imagine what they can build. I'm 100% on board. I have one more question that I'd really love to ask you, if I might.
Please.
Okay, here it is. So I'm going to put one words in air quotes. So if a higher power, I'm going to say air quotes higher power, whatever it is we believe that to be, it could be God, Allah, 0 point field, faith, whatever it is, time. If a higher power would let you do, be, have, see anything, and there are no limitations on finance, no limitations on geography, no limitations on mindset, what would that look like for you?
The coolest thing to me would be, and let me give you the context. I grew up with my grandparents. So when my parents' relationship disintegrated, my mom had to leave us with my grandparents for a while. And so it was in that home that I got to see what a two-parent home looked like. It was in that home that I saw the combination of massive strength and tenderness in a man. So my grandfather was my hero in many ways. He died when I was pretty young. I don't know, maybe about 12. It would be a treat to interact with him and him see what I've done, so far. That would be an unspeakable treasure. I think every young man, you want that your father would say, "Congratulations, you did well." Um, it's deeper than that, but it would just be interesting to see his interactions, see what conversations he'd have for me, get his thoughts, and even just to interact with him as a man now, as opposed to a little boy, but actually interact with him as a man, take him out, show him things, and that would be a treat.
Beautiful. I love it. I can't think of a better way to end. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Friends who are listening, Dr. Ricardo White, you can find more information about Dr. White on his website. I am going to sign up on his waiting list. You can get on the waiting list for his mastermind classes at www.killingburnout.com. Again, it's www.killingburnout.com. Get on the waiting list and you will absolutely benefit. Thank you, Dr. Ricardo White, for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Mary. This was an absolute treat. And I hope everyone's making use of what it is you're offering in terms of helping them reveal their genius.
Thank you so much.